Greetings friends. Thanks for stopping by for a visit. If you enjoy the video, please subscribe.
Growing up playing video games and watching war movies, I didn't think twice about joining the Marines so I could be in the infantry. I went through all of the training and unwelcome hardship that makes you really reconsider your decision. Anyway, I got stationed to a desert base known as 29 Palms, the largest piece of militarily controlled land in the US. It covers approximately 930 square miles in total. It's fucking huge in Southern California and a few hours from Mexico. When you're out that far, you start to see some shit. Anyway, fast forward to my first field op and me losing my shit. To put things in perspective as to how far away we are from civilization, the closest man-made object is a 3-hour ride away. This day was particularly hot because it broke 130, as if the sun said I told I could. So we spent all day hiding under camouflage netting, getting classes about various military tactics. Once the sun set, we set off into night to get some hard, realistic training done. At night, we practice using our night vision optic to do simple shit like reloading and reading maps. It produces an image off of ambient infrared light, so you can actually see a lot more shit than the naked eye. The sky is absolutely cluttered with stars. I can see a shooting star every few seconds. The Milky Way. It's pretty darn cool. Finally, after roaming around aimlessly for what felt like forever, we head back and we're granted a few hours of sleep. I lay down and start to drift off. I'm suddenly woken up after what felt like 10 minutes, and I get up instantly. Get up, bitch, you're on watch. God damn it. I get dressed and I stand my post dutifully like I'm told at the checkpoint. I'm given a radio and told to only lift the barbed wire after it gets approved over the radio. It's maybe around 2 a.m. and everyone else in my company is dead asleep except for myself and an officer in the comm truck. All I can hear are the coyotes. I decide to start looking at the stars with my night vision. I hear a coyote yelp off in the distance and think nothing of it. A few minutes later, another Marine comes over a small hill in front of me. Nothing crazy, probably taking a dump. He walks towards me, but his eyes don't really reflect light. Rationally, one of us is probably dehydrated, so I think nothing of it. He approaches me, and after a few seconds of staring at me, he simply says, "Can I come in?" His voice didn't sound right. No inflection or questioning tone. Weird. I ask him what his name was and why he was out so far taking a dump. He tells me his name, SGD Wright, and he ignores my dump question. Same weird voice. Granted, I'm new to the unit, so I don't know anyone named SGD Wright, but I still had to verify it. Maine, this is Rogue Guard 1. There is a SGT Wright requesting entry. Over. Rogue Guard 1, this is Maine. There is no SGT Wright in this company, and the closest unit is 25 miles away. Make sure. Shit, get the fuck back here right now. Don't let him or even look at him. Run. As the weird dude started to hear this, his face changed to severely angry, like he wanted to rip my throat out and drink my blood. By the time I got back, everyone is awake. All of the vehicle lights are turned on and everyone is packing up, scrambling into the trucks. We leave a lot of shit behind, like the tents, water, and food, and drive the entire 3 hours back. I never got an explanation from anyone but my squad leader, who was a simple, backwoods kind of guy, who bluntly said that whatever I saw wasn't asking to get through the gate. I never really understood what he meant by that until I discovered this sub.
I have seen and killed real evil. I'm not talking about people. Well, I've killed plenty of them too. But no man compares to real evil. No man is capable of the same atrocities and chaos that real evil inflicts. I hunted giants during my first deployment to Afghanistan, and they are the epitome of evil. I'm a U.S. Army Ranger. I've been serving in BAT for 12 years, and I've seen and killed the scariest shit imaginable. I haven't told anyone for fear of what would happen to my family and me. I lay awake most nights, wishing I could tell my wife what I've encountered, my mind and soul breaking from the weight I have to carry. I relive the horrors every night when I go to sleep. Army Rangers are a Tier 2 Spec Ops unit, along with Green Berets, SF, SEALs, Marine Force Recon, and MARSOC. Tier 1 consists of CAG Delta Force, Dev Group, SEAL Team 6, and numerous groups that I won't speak about. There's value in being unknown to the world. We're often joined by Tier 1 groups from around the world, which are usually the SAS, Brits, Aussies, and Kiwis, and Joint Task Force 2, Canadians. Tier 2 consists of the top 0.1% of the military. Tier 1 generally only recruits the best from Tier 2. We all train for years for selection/qualification schools. We all possess top secret security clearances or higher. We're all very good at killing, and we all will forfeit our freedom or lives, and possibly those of our families, if we share what we've done. Our government utilizes Spec Ops units because we work in secret. We are the best, we're well funded, and we can deploy anywhere in the world without congressional approval, declaration of war. You'll be shocked by how many countries, and which countries, that we're currently serving in. Our track record is impeccable, but usually closed to the public. I'm 34, a major, and have been serving in BAT, Ranger Battalion 1SD/2ND/3RD, for the past 12 years. I'm from Kansas City, and a Mizzou grad. I'm currently attending a military school, CGSOC, at Fort Leavenworth while I work on my PhD from Kansas State and await my next deployment to some hellhole. The good news is that I have plenty of time to share my experiences before I head back out. My first encounter with real evil happened during my first deployment to Afghanistan. It was 2009. I remember checking the computers in Kuwait while awaiting a C-130 to take me to Bagram Air Base in Afghanistan. I was excited the Chiefs had just signed Matt Castle, thinking we'd be headed to the Super Bowl soon. Talk about naive. Anything to get my mind off of what awaited me: death, paralysis, loss of limbs. I was 24, just a year out of college, and didn't even have a serious girlfriend. I had a lot to live for. I pushed it out of my mind, leaning on the fact that I'd be leading the baddest motherfuckers on the planet. My Rangers would get it done, and I'd make my Bat and Rangers proud. I flew into Bagram at 2,200 with a couple dozen other soldiers, wearing our IOTVs, bulletproof vests, and ACHs, Kevlar helmets. The C-130 was dark, only the dim green lights illuminating the inside. Those around me glowed an alien green. The pilot gave us a warning to strap in as he began his descent, circling over the airfield and shooting flares to ensure no RPGs could hit us on the way down. Some fob-bit whimpered and cried in the corner, while an NCO, making eye contact with me, yelled at the soldier to stop being a bitch, as he rolled his eyes with a small grin. The ramp lowered, slamming hard on the cement runway with a loud, metallic crack. I grabbed my gear and head out in the dark. A huge staff sergeant, SSG, yelled, "LT, get your shit and follow me." SSG Vasquez, 6 feet 5 inches, and built like a brick shithouse, shaved head, looking like the Hispanic version of The Rock. He led me to the hooch in the Spec Ops gated community, on base. It was a storage container, which had 3 sleeping quarters divided by plywood. He told me to throw my gear on and head to the TOC, Tactical Operations Center. The commander had a mission for me. I stood in the TOC in full gear, M4 hanging from my sling and Glock in a leg holster, looking at the dozens of TV screens and soldiers monitoring radios. The room was full of chatter, too much chatter. Something big was going on. My commander, Lieutenant Colonel LTC Williams, introduced himself, telling me I was in the big leagues now, shut the fuck up, and do exactly what Captain CPT Stone said. He then ushered me into a side room. I looked around and realized this wasn't going to be a normal mission. SSG Vasquez sat at a table with 8 others, their sleeves bare, no Ranger scrolls. I realized it was an ODA, 8-man team of Green Berets. My commander started his brief. Team 329, team #S/names changed to protect identities, went missing approximately 4 hours ago in a desolate portion of the Al-AC Mountains. Their last transmission came in broken. They were escorting a CIA operative to a cave high in the mountains. We haven't been told anything else. We're sending in Team 357 for search and rescue. LT, you and Vasquez are tagging along. Your platoon is on mission for another few days, so you're going to get some experience learning from CPT Stone and his team. The S2 intel officer stepped in and provided as much detail as he could for the mission, while my commander pulled me out of the room. LT, we don't know what the fuck is going on. The CIA are being shitbags as usual. They've left the teams and us in the dark. I want you and Vasquez to gather as much intel as possible while you're there. These fuckers are getting our guys killed, and we don't know what for. I met CPT Stone and his team at their vehicles, 3 HMMWVs that had been stripped down. They basically looked like dune buggies with miniguns mounted on top. CPT Stone looked me in the eyes. He had a steely resolve, but there was worry behind his eyes. He raised his hand above his head and said, "LT, aim high." I responded, "Roger, sir," headshots, gathering that he meant the enemy had body armor on. He looked at me again, fiercely serious, and fully extended his arm above his head. "No, aim high." I nodded, and we all loaded into the vehicles. Is he saying they'll hit us from the top of the cave? I remember thinking. I pushed it from my mind as we took off. We left Bagram, still pitch black, wearing NVGs as we rode through the hot desert night. I was constantly scanning the perimeter, waiting to be ambushed on the roads. I looked back at the huge, bearded team guys. They were all looking straight ahead. They all seemed to know something that I didn't. They had zero concern for the road and seemed to be a million miles away in their minds. It was as if the real threat far exceeded what we'd see from the Hajis en route. We hit the AC Mountains a couple hours later, pulling into a small combat outpost, COP, and dismounting. Ammo, grenades, water, and NVGs is all that CPT Stone said. I grabbed my assault pack as one of the team guys tossed me a few grenades and extra mags. We stepped off from the COP, moving up the mountain in a wedge formation. I remember thinking we were invincible as I looked at these huge warriors carrying M4S, SCARs, M2 sniper rifles, and 203 grenade launchers. These guys had probably taken down entire Al-Qaeda units by themselves. They had the look, the one you earn from taking the lives of other men. I felt like I was superhuman. Little did I know what awaited us. We came upon the cave just as the sun was cresting the mountain. The sky was blood red as the darkness faded into oblivion. The cave looked like the mouth of a giant serpent. The opening was on the other side of a sheer ledge that stood 10 to 15 feet high. As we approached, CPT Stone said, "Eyes up, keep your distance." As we got within 100 meters of the cave, I saw something shiny on the ground. I signaled for the squad to halt and called CPT Stone over. It was a radio. The mic had been ripped off and the radio had a massive dent. Dried, black blood caked the side of it. Chunks of skin and tissue littered the area. CPT Stone said, "Shit, James," as his face turned to anger. He stood up as one of the team guys pulled out some climbing gear. He fastened it, and we all climbed the ropes as silently as we could. I was last to climb, cresting the ledge and seeing the squad in the prone, pointing their weapons at the cave opening. As soon as I was up, the squad stood and started to move slowly toward the cave. One of the team guys took point and took a few steps toward the cave. I was overcome with the worst smell imaginable, like sulfur, shit, and rotten milk. I began to get an intense feeling of despair and hopelessness. It wasn't the adrenaline rush and heightened senses of a normal engagement. It felt evil. Just as he put his hand up to motion for us to stop, I heard the deepest, loudest roar emanate from the cave. It sounded like a cross between a man yelling and the roar of a lion, but blended in an impossible manner. Before we knew it, something huge came charging out of the cave and impaled with a massive spear, lifting him 15 feet off of the ground. I looked in amazement at what looked like a huge man. It was absolutely massive, standing 13 to 14 feet tall, its shoulders as wide as I am tall. It had long red hair and a shaggy red beard. It had a loin cloth on and leather sacks on its feet. We were all momentarily frozen. There was an absolute sense of pure, unbridled evil that emanated from this thing. Finally, CPT Stone yelled, "Headshots." We all unleashed a barrage of rounds into its head and face. 9 soldiers, all emptying 2 to 3 magazines worth of ammo into the beast. It dropped who was still skewered on the spear, and began to charge me, the ground shaking with every step. It looked at me with such cruelty and disdain, open mouth revealing 2 rows of giant teeth. I felt like an ant that was about to be stomped on by a child. It yelled something in another language that I didn't understand, its voice splitting my eardrums. As it reached out its massive hand to grab me, it finally fell, riddled with bullets, its head and face caved in. CPT Stone empties another magazine of 7.62 into the giant's head before going to check on E's body. It took 3 of us to lift the spear and another 2 to pull E's body off of the spear shaft, which makes a sucking noise as we pull him off. The spear had ripped out his entire chest cavity. His ribs were splintered and sticking straight out like crooked, jagged teeth. All of his internal organs lay in a pile on the desert floor. The 5 of us covered in his warm, sticky blood. CPT Jones called in the SITREP and requested transport. We all sat down for what seemed like an eternity of silence. Normally, after a mission, we joke around and tell the most inappropriate stories. It's tradition and makes the horror of war feel a little more acceptable. Today was different. Every eye was glazed over. Everyone sat, facing away from a giant. We had seen, felt real evil. This thing was not a man. Being in its presence brought on a feeling of hopelessness that I can't begin to describe. It was like all of the joy, hope, and good had been sucked out of a world, replaced by despair and agony. We finally stood up and examined the beast. It had 6 fingers on each hand. Its hands were large enough to wrap around my torso. Its mouth revealed 2 rows of teeth, with each tooth being the length of my finger. The hair on its head and beard was an unnatural shade of red. I wrapped my hands around one of its fingers in an attempt to lift its arm. I couldn't even get its hand off of the ground. The spear, still dripping with blood, weighed as much as the logs we use in training that require 6 men to lift above our heads. We stepped into the cave, seeing hundreds of human bones. Chunks of skin, tissue, and military uniforms littered the pile. In the corner were hundreds of weapons. Modern guns like M4S and FELs, rusted-out AK-47s, and ancient, rotting swords, spears, and shields. It's like it was keeping trophies. An unmarked Chinook showed up 15 minutes later. A bunch of spooks, CIA ops, walked out. One said, "Grab the Neff." The team sergeant yelled, "Fucking clowns, thanks for the intel." The agents never made eye contact. They unloaded a forklift and cargo net, wrapping up the beast and loading him into the Chinook. CPT Stone motioned for me to come over. I asked if he was doing his closure report, a brief officers have to fill out to summarize battles. He said no, wait for it. Shortly after, one of the agents walked over and pulled out a piece of paper. It was a pre-filled closure report detailing how we had been ambushed by Al-Qaeda. He had been killed before we scared them off. He said, "Sign here." CPT Stone signed and motioned for me to do the same. With a threatening look, the agent said, "You can never speak of this." He turned to walk away, and I asked, "What's a Neff?" He paused momentarily, then walked off. When we returned to Bagram, we did a full debrief. Some spooks sat in the corner the entire time to ensure we didn't speak about the giant. After the brief, my commander told me to shower and meet him at the smoke pit in 20 minutes. Ditch your electronics. LTC Williams handed me a cigar as I approached the smoke pit. He asked me what I had actually seen on mission, and then explained to me that 6 other teams had encountered these giants. Most were less lucky than we were. He informed me that he was trying to figure out what the hell they were, and he did eventually. But that's a story for another day. My first engagement with a giant set off a chain of events that brought me to the truth of those evil beings and many others. After the mission was over, I was approached by one of the team guys. He removed his hat to reveal a kipper underneath. "Sir, do you want to know what that thing said to you when it charged?" he asked. I nodded without hesitation. It said, "Son of Yeshua, I will eat your soul." He then looked me in the eye and said, "We've killed dozens of these things. We're figuring out what they are, and it's not good. Head out with us on mission tomorrow, and I'll fill you in."
Hello everyone. I am wanting to share this story with you that happened to me a few nights ago. I am scared beyond belief in a place that is supposed to be safe. But before I go any further, let me give you a brief backstory. I am in the US Air Force and have only been in less than a year. I just got stationed at my first base a few months ago. I can't be too specific, but it is overseas and it is in the Pacific. Joining the military was not an easy thing to do. Number one, no one in my family has served in the military, so I received some backlash from that. Number two, I am a female, so my family worries about me a lot. They don't think it's very safe to be in the military as a female, and I have set out to prove them wrong. Yes, I am not in that great of a physical condition, but when I leave this base, which is hopefully soon after I tell you the story, I will be in the best shape of my life. Since I am stationed overseas, I do see a lot of the locals. Their military personnel are on this base, and we do work hand in hand in order to complete the mission of keeping them a democratic country against their enemy. I knew it would be hard being here, since I can't see my family for a year, but I have felt like I have been adjusting quite nicely. Except for being the only female in my shop, things have been great. So the other night, after a long 12-hour shift like normal, I decided to head back to my dorm to change out of my uniform. After a long day, it feels great to not have to be in your uniform. Once those boots are off, I feel like I'm in heaven. I passed out for a couple of hours, and when I woke up, I decided to go off base and wander around, looking at all the new sights and sounds this country has to offer that mine doesn't. I left my dorm building at around 9 p.m. Curfew is 1 a.m., so I knew that I wouldn't be out for long. First mistake. I didn't take a wingman. What a wingman is just another person you know, like a friend, who just watches out for you and protects you should anything go down. I didn't even think about bringing one, as I am a loner anyway. I was wandering around off base, got some nice local cuisine, and started to head back on base. I showed the military police my ID and got back on base. I didn't notice that anyone else wasn't coming back on base. Normally at this time of night, the gate is crowded with people coming and going. I started walking up the steps and to the main road of the base. It looked stranded. I didn't see anyone driving around, nor did I see any taxis waiting in their usual spot. I sighed heavily and guessed that I should make the trek back to my dorm. Not even a minute later, I heard a weird noise coming from behind some plants. I ignored it and kept walking. But then I heard it again. I slowly started to make my way towards the plants, keeping my guard up. I slowly pushed some leaves and branches away, and what I saw horrified me. I saw a young woman laying on the ground. Her skin was pale and she had bright red hair. She was wearing a black dress and seemed to be sleeping. I reached out and touched her gently, shaking her shoulder. "Excuse me, miss," I whispered. She didn't move. I then saw a weird shadow over the woman lying in front of me. I looked up and saw a man who appeared to be a local. He looked really tall and gangly, with dark hair. He was wearing sunglasses and had his arms crossed. I'm sorry. I think we need to help her," I stuttered out. He just continued to stare at me. "Do you speak English?" No response. "Kamsahamnida," I think means hello or good evening in their language. Still no response. I looked down at the woman and started shaking her again. "Okay, I'm going to go and get security forces. She seems to need help." I was feeling really creeped out by this point. Even though it is very hot and humid here, I suddenly got the chills. I started to stand back up, and when I did, I looked at the man. He was smiling brightly, his teeth glowing in the night. He started laughing. I don't understand," I whispered. Just then, the woman opened her eyes and looked up at me. Before I knew what was going on, she grabbed my ankle and bit me. I screamed out in pain. I kicked at her face as hard as I could. She started laughing as she let go of my leg. I took off running, hearing the man's footsteps behind me. The woman's laugh was very high-pitched and maniacal, whereas the man's laugh was more of a chuckle. I could hear them behind me yelling, "Where are you going, little girl?" The female said, "I hope you don't have any other plans tonight, because you are ours now." I heard the man scream, "What in the ever-loving fuck?" I thought to myself. I was running a little bit slower than usual as I was wearing sandals instead of my tennis shoes. I could feel blood starting to drip down my leg. Just stay calm and focused, I thought to myself, as I was almost to the gate now. I could hear their laughter as I pushed the door open and ran into the little building. "Please help. There are 2 crazy people out there. One of them bit me," I yelled at the sergeant behind the counter. He looked up at me like I was crazy. I swung my leg onto the counter and showed him my wound. He then got on the radio and called for one of the patrolmen to come to the scene. When he showed up, I lead them outside. "We need to get you medical attention," one of them stated. "I don't care, we just need to find them," I said in response. As we were walking, I gave them a description of what I could tell they looked like from the dark. After wandering around for about 30 minutes, and the officer sending out a couple of troops to scour the base, they haven't been sighted. I finally gave up and let them escort me to the base hospital. Once in, I told the officers that I could handle it from here. We said our good nights and to call them if I needed them. I sat in the waiting area for about an hour waiting to be seen. The night's other accidents waiting in the area too. Once I heard my name called, I followed the nurse into a room and was told to wait to be seen by the doctor. I started reading one of the boring magazines they have at every hospital when I heard the door open. I looked up and saw the doctor. It was her. She smiled at me innocently and said, "So, after reading your paperwork, it seems like someone attacked you and bit you?" She stated, raising her eyebrow questioningly. I froze, my heart beating 1,000 miles an hour and a cold sweat starting to form. Yes. I gotta go. Something's come up, I said and jumped off that hospital plastic bed and went to grab my things. The woman grabbed my arm so hard I thought she was going to bruise me. I froze and looked up at her. She was looking down at me with so much rage that I have never experienced in my life. It felt like she was looking into my soul. "Don't think you can get away. I will find you. I know what you taste like," she whispered to me. I screamed as loud as I could and she let go of me, smiling at me again. I ran out into the hallway and out the doors. Once I ran out of the hospital building, I started running towards my dorm. I ran harder than I ever have in my entire life. Even harder than I did back in BMT, basic military training. I was running past the TFAC, dinning facility, when I bumped into a pedestrian. "Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me," I said in a hurried tone. When I turned and tried to start running again, the man grabbed my arm. "Where do you think you're going?" He smiled at me. I gulped and kicked him as hard as I could in his shin. I didn't know what else to do. He started laughing and let me go. By this point, I was in tears. I started running again and he yelled behind me, "Don't worry, we'll meet again soon." I was sobbing and out of breath once I made it into the dorm building, up the elevator and into my dorm. I locked my dorm door and sat on the ground, sobbing and catching my breath. Eventually, I got up and doctored my leg. It looks like it needs stitches, but I'm not going back to the hospital. I have a hand-shaped bruise on my arm. That was a few nights ago. I don't know what to do. I don't want to go to security forces and act like a crazy person and get kicked out of the military. But I also don't want to live in paranoia and fear. The other day when I was walking to work, in bright daylight, I was sure I heard her laughter. But I didn't see her. What should I do? What do you think is going on? I'm so lost, confused, and scared. I thought I was supposed to be safe here.
So, I'll give you some background on myself. At the time, I was a brand new private first class in the U.S. Army. I was an infantry soldier that happened to get stationed in Footmire, VA, to the Army Old Guard. For those that don't know, this is the Army Ceremonial Unit. We do the funerals in Arlington National Cemetery, guard the Tomb of the Unknowns, among plenty of other things. I worked the unveiling of the 9/11 Memorial at the Pentagon, Obama's first inauguration, and things like that. It's a small post, with not a whole lot of soldiers stationed there, but it borders the cemetery directly. Now, at this point when this happened, I had been here 5 months, I believe, and it was in autumn, I want to say October or November. As you can imagine, a lot of the buildings are pretty old. The cemetery was originally Robert E. Lee's land, and his house is still on there. The oldest graves go back to the Civil War. So as I become more familiar in my company and platoon, I make friends with some of the tomb guards. These guys are out there all the time, especially while in training, which is a hellish 9 to 12 months. At night, they will practice doing their walks, rifle manual, and when they screw up, they get smoked, do physical exercises to the point of exhaustion, a common thing in the military. Anyway, a lot of these guys have some interesting stories, which I will share before my own. One of my buddies who'd been there a while told me some rather common spirits/ghosts that are seen by many of the tomb guards. One is a lady in a red dress who kind of wanders a cemetery. From what I understand, is she looks lost, and the common theory is that she is looking for her husband/significant other. She is wearing a turn of the century, beautiful big red ball gown, and never seems to notice the soldiers and just kind of wanders the grounds. Now, this cemetery is massive, and she doesn't always seem to be in the same spot either. Another common thing that occurs is at night soldiers will frequently hear the caisson move through the cemetery, which is a horse-drawn carriage that will carry the casket to the burial spot. However, the caisson doesn't go through at night. They hear it only, the clopping of horse hooves on pavement, in addition to wagon wheels being rolled down as well. I'll tell you one that used to be common and much more unsettling. Near the Tomb Amphitheater, on top of a hill is a famous mausoleum, one of only 2 in the whole cemetery, which belongs to the Miles family. Now, It started with General Nelson A. Miles, who had a colorful service record from the Civil War and more notably the Indian Wars. I've read that he was a fairly brutal commander toward the natives, but to the truth of that, I do not know for sure. Anyway, in the mid-2000s, the Army removed the windows and put granite slabs away, and then put the bars back on. This was not to prevent people breaking in. After all, security is tight on the place 24/7. It was because the tomb guards often heard terrible screams and emitting a strange green light in the dead of night. From what I understand, it was terrifying. Since putting the granite slabs up, there hasn't been much talk of screams and eerie light. I have more secondhand stories along those lines, but I don't want to put a giant wall of text up. But I suppose if there's interest in this, I will type them up in another post. On to my story. Now, this particular night was stormy, I know. Cliche, right? And my wife, a buddy, and myself were all out eating dinner. He was only a few months from getting out of the Army, while I was brand new. He was recently divorced, so I let him live his few remaining months out with us at our apartment. One thing led to another, and he started talking to us about creepy ghost stories he'd heard of that occurred in the cemetery, in the old post chapel. Now, this is the place where the funeral will occur, and from there we will escort the body, carry the casket, doing a firing party, 21-gun salute, in the cemetery. This chapel is right outside the gate, still on base, so it's right next to the cemetery. It's also pretty old. It was built in the mid-1930s, if I'm correct. Now my buddy, we will call him BZ, starts telling me all about spooky happenings at this location. How the MP's military police, K9s will not go inside. How a girl hung herself in the basement when the chapel was new on her wedding day, among some other things. Now, at the time, I wasn't a believer in ghosts or anything like that, and I was under the impression he's just pulling a new guy's leg. However, he says, well, the chaplain assistants are supposed to lock up the building every night, but the MPs tell me sometimes the side door is unlocked, and they check every night. Intrigued, but skeptical, I say something along the lines of, okay, then let's go check out, it can't hurt. Now, at first, he looks apprehensive, but agrees nonetheless. My wife is certainly not thrilled by the idea, but she comes along too. We get on post and drive up the chapel. It's around 9 p.m., rain coming down steadily over the car, with the occasional flash of lightning and thunder. At this point, I'm really thinking he's got a setup and is just doing this to screw with me, but armed with that suspicion, I go forward with this anyway. We get out of the car and run to the side door, and lo and behold, it opens. It creaks open and sounds very much like a 75-plus-year-old building, and along with that the stormy weather, it makes this sound like a cliche horror story. We step in quickly to get out of the rain. Now, I kid you not, the air was so stuffy and so thick, it felt like you could cut with a knife. It felt very ominous and uninviting. My wife, who has more sense than I, immediately says, I'm out. Give me the keys. I'll wait in the car. Now she gets scared easier than I do, but she's also had more of a connection with spirits. Anyway, this leaves BZ and myself standing in the entryway. It's pitch black, and we are having a hard time getting a full breath of air. I can hear the air conditioning is on, so it made no sense for the place to be so stuffy. After all, I've been in this building plenty of times before, and in the dead of summer, which is humid as hell up there, even worse when you're wearing full uniforms. Well, now it actually starts to dawn on me that maybe he isn't kidding, and maybe the chapel is haunted. We both open our flip phones for light and make our way into the actual main room. It's very pretty, the inside of the chapel, although somewhat small. It has high ceilings, old wooden pews down each side, stained glass windows, all white walls, the works, with stormy clouds above and no lights on other than our two old flip phones, which those of you remember, do not cast out much light. It didn't make for a settling experience. It was also so quiet. You'd think rain beating down on the building, in addition to occasional thunder, would echo throughout. But this was not the case. We made our way down the aisle, looking around as far as we could see, which as I said wasn't very far, and not finding anything really interesting. The building has some moans and groans every so often, nothing out of the ordinary, especially for such an old building. BZ and I were walking side by side and were nearing the end of the aisle and prepared to turn left to go through a set of doors and head down to the basement. when we heard a pew groan very loudly, and it was close behind us. It was like someone rather large had sat down the way the wood groaned. We spun around, shining our phones wildly, and of course, seeing nothing. The room seemed hazier than before, which we couldn't really explain, and it could be our imagination. Let's go down to the basement, BZ says as he leads away and opens the double doors to the stairs. I didn't think it was possible, but the air felt even thicker as we descended, getting almost hard to breathe with each step. In addition to that, it feels colder as all basements do, but it only increased my amazement on how the air could feel this stuffy with the AC on. The basement is administrational stuff. The chaplains have their offices. There's a small break room, stuff like that. Nothing too exciting down here. All the offices are locked up, and we couldn't hear or see anything usual. We get to a set of old wooden double doors, and BZ opens a handle to another ominous creak. As I briefly mentioned earlier, a woman had supposedly hung herself from a rafter in the basement, using a table to stand on her wedding day many years ago. The chaplain's assistants, enlisted guys. So we actually get to talk to them. Say the table is still in the basement, and for whatever reason it is always clean. The area around it can get dusty or dirty, but this table is always spotless. Anyway, we enter the room, and it seems more of a storage room than anything else. There are folding tables and chairs set off to the side. There was an old refrigerator, a few old desks, and right in the middle, an old, heavy-looking table that looked spotless. Upon further investigation, everything else was dusty. As I said, it looked to be a storage room, but not this desk. BZ and I catch each other's eyes in the low light, and without saying a word, leave the room immediately. The hairs on my neck stand on end immediately, and the feeling someone is following me creeps on my mind. BZ exits first, me right behind, and I shut the door with a little extra force, probably just from adrenaline. BZ and I decide to head back upstairs, and we see a small glow coming from a room we didn't notice before. We walk in to find a prayer room. Forgive me if this isn't what it's called. I'm not a religious man. With a couple small pews and a kneeling area with candles. One of these candles is lit. BZ walks over to a door leading outside and checks to make sure it's locked, which it is. I'm still standing in the middle of the room, hair standing on my neck, almost like I have a small electrical pulse going through my body and the feeling of being watched. This only makes it harder to take a full breath. The storm seems to have picked up outside, as we can hear water start to pound the stained glass with a little more force. BZ walks to the candle and says, "I've always wondered if this is true," and before I can say anything, he blows out the candle. We watch as the wick stops glowing and the smoke becomes a thin wispy trail. An ultimate feeling of dread seems to hit us both at that moment. I can't really explain it, but you know when you've done something wrong and it just punches you in the gut? That feeling. Let's get back to the car, man. I say, and we walk rather quickly back to the side door and out into the rain. Despite getting wet, the air immediately feels so fresh and inviting, and it helps me calm down. We run back in the car. My wife unlocks it, and I climb into the driver's seat, him in the back. My wife was on the phone talking to a friend to keep herself from freaking out, I suppose, and she ended the conversation quickly to hear what we had to say. I turn back to BZ. "Why'd you blow out the candle, man?" "You shouldn't have done that," he replies along the lines of, "I've heard if you blow it out, it will be relit when we go back in." It hits me, of course, that he said, "Go back in." I don't really say anything else about it. Nothing truly terrifying has happened. Might as well see if the rumor is true. The three of us make small talk, and we inform my wife about the air, the pew creaking and the table being clean. After 30 minutes, we decide to go back. My wife, of course, waits in the car. The heavy air hits us with even more force this time as we go in. I wasn't expecting that, since I knew it was coming. This only increases my nerves and his. We walk rather quickly to the prayer room, and sure enough, the goddamn candle is lit again, the flames flickering and dancing like normal. This seems rather impossible. We made sure it was put out only half an hour earlier. This was no trick candle. We'd been to every single room in that chapel, and confirmed we were the only two people there. It turns out we weren't. We say nothing, and this time we run back to the car. My wife knows something had happened just by the looks on our faces. We tell her everything, and the drive home is rather short back to our apartment. By this point, it's around 11 p.m. and we've all calmed down to a degree. We watched some TV and retired to our bedroom, while he slept on the couch. It was a small apartment. Northern Virginia is an expensive place to live, especially on an enlisted soldier salary. I woke up a few times throughout the night with a feeling of dread, but nothing too severe. My nerves were on edge and, of course, had that whole experience on my mind all night. In the morning, I get up and walk out in the living room to find BZ is already awake, and he doesn't look like he's had much sleep. "What's going on, man?" I ask him casually. He looks up at me from the sofa and says, "Last night, I had a dream about a bride with a rope around her neck asking me why I blew out her candle." That is my story. Nothing too crazy, but enough to make me a believer in spirits/ghosts. Like I said, if this is more interest, I have a lot more secondhand stories from other soldiers and their times out in the boneyard, ANC, and even on post.
The rig is a towering skeleton of steel, rising up and out of the water. To walk across its surface from one place to the next is to walk between enormous ribs of cold metal, beneath the glare of 100 blinking lights. Like watchful eyes in the darkness. Red, yellow, white, staring. The military infrastructure on this rig is minimal, at best. Communications facilities with direct channels to superiors. A maintenance station. And a unique, modified Phalanx CIWS. An enormous gun, anti-ship in its original design. We use it when required, if the shadow in the sea gets too close. My name is Alejandro. I work for the U.S. Army. I dislike working on this rig, but I get no choice in the matter. I am stationed here currently with Leighton and Evie, 2 fellow soldiers. And about 60 rig workers too, though our interactions with the crew are minimal. They think we bring bad luck. They might well be right. The rig is 250 miles east off the coast of New Jersey. The wind is cold and fierce, and I shiver at my station as I squint out over the waves, gradually increasing in their intensity as they churn and froth against the rig's great legs. Leighton steps up beside me. I don't know what she's doing here. In the Army, I mean. Not on the rig. Our purpose on the rig is clear, even if it makes little sense. But Leighton was always too soft for this life. And now she's just too scared to quit, I think. I don't even blame her. Being told what to do is a pain, but at least we have our instructions. Instructions are simple. "It's going to rain tonight, Jandro," she says to me. "You think?" "Oh, I know. My hearing's playing up again. Means it's going to rain." I reply, disinterested. "Also, Command gave me the weather report earlier," she says. "In fact, look over there. You can see the edge of the rain if you look real hard." I follow her finger, and sure enough, on the gray horizon, there is a shadowed column of rain in the far distance, beneath a steadily rolling, building crescendo of clouds. The relevance of the rain is significant. The DOTP is far more likely to arrive during such weather. The greater the obscurity in our surroundings, the more likely it is to appear. I lean back against the rail behind me and rub a hand across my weary eyes. Allow me to explain our duties here. The DOTP is an acronym for Disturber of the Peace. It's the name that Leighton and Evie and I came up with to describe the anomaly that plagues this Partielakar rig. The DOTP arrives only at night, between the hours of 0100 and 0600. It takes the form of a Greenpeace ship. A small to mid-size icebreaker, typically. The name of the ship varies. The ship that most often frequents the rig goes by the name of the Watchful Guardian, though we've also had visits from Rainbow's End and Forgotten Queen. We've been in contact with Greenpeace, the organization. The real one. They have no knowledge of such ships and claim no affiliation. The ships arrive out of nowhere. Through mist, or from the waves themselves, if you're lucky enough to witness an arrival. The crew on board is unique to each of the 3 ships, though the 3 crews are constant. I know this only by the clothes they wear, and by their voices. Their faces are covered to protect them from the cold and the wind. Face masks, thick scarves, ski goggles, and the like. It unnerved me at first. Now it's just a part of the experience. I sigh. It's all so tiresome. The boredom. The brief little stabs of stress. The circular nature of the cycles of fear. The repetitiveness of it all. The Greenpeace vessel will try to encourage us to join them. That's their thing. To try and encourage us to abandon the rig. And then, when the shadow is due to arrive in the sea, the vessel departs. Off they sail into the mists, and they vanish. The next time they come by they have absolutely no memory of their previous visits. It's maddening, really, if one chooses to think about it. I choose not to. Instead I shoot the shit with Leighton. Do you ever wonder where the DOTP goes when it leaves for the night? She asks me. It's not the first time she's asked this question. I used to, I tell her. Don't much care anymore. Yeah, but you don't really care about anything, she mutters. Untrue, I say back, but I don't have the energy to argue. Why don't they remember us? She asks. The crew, I mean. How come they always forget? Maybe it's all just an illusion. A trick so that the shadow in the water can get us. No, she says, shaking her head and wrinkling her nose. I don't think so. The ship always seems pretty scared of the shadow. If it wasn't for the shadow, then it might even stay all night trying to convince us to join them. But the shadow always comes, I say, looking out over the water as the sun disappears beneath the sea. It always does. Yeah, she murmurs. Yeah, I guess that's true. Still, I don't think the crew are evil. They seem too nice. Maybe they really are trying to, you know? Save us. They seem too nice, I repeat, shaking my head. They're dangerous. Don't let them into your head. Yeah, she says quietly. Sure. A noise behind me bids me turn, and I make eye contact with a rig worker. He gives me a curt nod, glances to Leighton, then carries on along his way, ascending a mesh metal set of stairs to the level above. They think it's our fault, you know, I say to Leighton. Again, not for the first time. Our topics of conversation tend to go round and around. Circular. The rig workers think we're the ones who bring the ship. Who draw in the shadow. Maybe we are, she shrugs. Bullshit. The anomalies came first, and we were sent out here to deal with it all. It's not like the ship is dangerous, though, Leighton says. It's never actually attacked us. Yeah, that's because we're here. I know you're familiar with deterrence, Leighton. We studied it together. She opens her mouth to continue, but I'm not done. And besides, the shadow in the water is definitely dangerous. Maybe our presence here is the only thing stopping the shadow from doing what the DOTP always promises it will. And hell, who knows what their true motives are? I'm not convinced, she replies. Are we a deterrent to the shadow too, do you think? Does it even know we're here? Oh, it knows, I mutter. It fucking knows. Night falls. Evie has joined us, now. We watch as a trio, our eyes peeled for any hint that tonight might be a night that the disturber of the peace makes an appearance. There's no way of knowing really. As I said earlier, bad weather increases the likelihood, but it's never guaranteed. Command have been trying to establish a pattern, but if they have one, they haven't chosen to share it with us on the rig. I don't know why we're bothering to even look out for it. The ship, I mean. Just force of habit, I guess. And the small matter of it being our orders to do so, of course. I suppose it is rather unnerving when the ship appears out of thin air. I don't like being caught by surprise. The rain falls. The waves froth and crash far beneath us. I'm going to check out the north side, Evie says to us. What? Leighton shouts above a sudden blast of wind. North side, Evie says again, louder. I'm going to look for it there. No. I call out, no, don't bother. It's already here. She turns. The Greenpeace ship has begun its grim emergence. Waves crash and bulge out at sea, in a way dissimilar to all the other waves around it. The mist thickens in this area, and in this area alone. I think I catch a glimpse of a shiny white-gray hull, but it is hidden from sight almost immediately as the mist breaks like a bubble and disperses out and across the water. Attention, Evie murmurs beside me. Attention, comrades of the rig. The voice comes blaring across the sea just a few seconds later, rumbling from a megaphone and carried by the wind. Attention, comrades of the rig. I chuckle, raising my rifle. It won't do jack shit from here, but again, it's part of the procedure. Deterrence. Warning shots if required, etc. The vessel begins to enter into plain sight. From the fog it rises and crashes through the waves, roughly parallel to us, but drawing slowly closer. I grab the binoculars and peer through them for a quick look. I recognize the crew, of course. I skin down to the ship's name, Watchful Guardian. Yes, it's our regular visitor. I look back over the deck. I count 5 people, all standing roughly the same distance apart, one holding the megaphone. He wears a thick blue parka and a blue mask, with an orange-visored pair of goggles. The others are all adorned in colorful clothing too. There's a woman amongst them who wears a pink jacket. She holds the megaphone sometimes. It's impossible to tell the gender of the others. They never speak to us, so we can't even tell by way of their voices. Comrades of the rig. Comes the voice, again. This rig and the people upon it are in mortal danger. The beast approaches, and you will need to evacuate onto our vessel immediately. Do you want to do it this time, Jandro? Evie asks me, holding out the megaphone. A roar of wind makes us all take a step back, and her ponytail is sent whipping around her shoulders. I reach out for the megaphone. Sure, I say, bringing it up to my mouth and lowering my weapon. I step up to the rail and lean out over the edge. Thank you for your concern. I call back over the water. But this rig is well equipped to defend itself. Thank you, now please, be on your way. You don't understand. The man on the deck replies, he throws out a desperate arm in plea. Your drilling here has encouraged the attention of the beast. He will strike an attack and bring down this rig before the morning. You need to allow us to dock so we can get everyone to safety. You are approaching the limit of the safety zone of this installation. I call back, well familiar and well bored of this tired old routine. Your ship is in danger of wreckage. Turn your boat around and steer clear. The ship draws closer. It's close enough now for me to read the vessel's name without the use of the binoculars. The man lowers the megaphone and says something inaudible to the woman in pink. They both gesticulate wildly, then the Maine brings the megaphone back up to his lips. If we are able to dock, then you have a chance to escape. Do you have no radar equipment available? The beast will be converging on this location as we speak. There isn't time for debate. If you want to live, then you need to board, now. Thunder ripples through the sky, and a faraway flash casts deep but temporary shadows across our environment. We have radar capabilities, of course, by the way, but they never reveal anything in the water. Sometimes we get readings from the DOTP itself, but not always. You are too close to the rig and at risk of wreck. If we believe you to pose a threat to the US citizens aboard this rig, then we will shoot down your ship. Please consider this a warning. Turn your vessel around and depart. Please, shouts the man, with such intense desperation that even despite the frequency of this little performance, it still gets to me. That gnawing doubt. I push it away. Turn your ship around. I shout back. You will not be warned again. We are receiving no signal or suggestion of any threat to this rig but yourself. Turn your ship around. Sometimes the DOTP leaves at this point. Sometimes it doesn't. There are a great many variables, and the three of us spend our mornings following these incidents, writing up play-by-plays for command to study. As I said before, we're yet to receive any meaningful intel back for our report writing. Maybe one day. Though our shifts will probably be done by then. Maybe there'll be something useful for the next crew. The man in blue hesitates. He talks to the woman in pink as his other three shipmates stand motionless. Sea legs of iron as the ship rocks and sways on the surface of the sea, but they themselves stand stock still. He brings up the megaphone. Comrade, allow us to dock. This entire rig must be evacuated. The beast will tear this entire apparatus, and the people upon it, to shreds. Or worse. Please, you must evacuate, you are in danger. All right, I mutter to Layton. Fire a warning shot. She hesitates. I look at her. Layton, fire, already. She does. There's a bang and a brief flash, though it's impossible to tell if the bullet even struck the ship. The man in blue gets the message, however. I appreciate your concerns. He shouts, but this is no trick and no trap. The beast approaches. We can save you. We can take you to safety, don't you get it? Please, at least let us dock, talk to us dash. Turn your ship around, Captain, I bellow into the megaphone. Or the shots we fire will increase in intensity until the threat your vessel poses to us has been neutralized. Why are you firing at us? The man shouts back. For fuck's sake, we're trying to help you, here. Don't you care? Do you think me a liar? I cannot risk the lives of my crew for you, so this is your final chance. Allow this vessel to dock at the rig, and you will be able to make an escape. We have space aplenty for dash. Evie, stationed with the Phalanx CIWS, brings the great gun around with a rattle and a mechanical crunch, aiming the barrel at the hull of the Watchful Guardian. The man stops mid-sentence, and lowers the megaphone. He shakes his head in frustration and says something to the woman in pink, who immediately runs from the deck and through a door in the cabin. You were warned, soldiers, he calls back. May God save you. I'm sorry. And with this he too strides from the deck. The other three follow, in single file. A horn blares from the ship, cutting through the froth and churn of the dark waves and the rush of the rain. The Watchful Guardian groans and rumbles and picks up speed, arcing around and away from us in a slow circle. They're leaving quickly tonight, Layton says, anxiously. Don't you think? I glance at my watch. No, not really. She shifts. I don't know. Haven't you noticed this? I swear they've started leaving easier and easier. Easier? Evie asks, stepping down from the rig's weapon. Yeah, you know, like, they don't put up much of a fight. Remember way back in the beginning? We could argue with them for hours. Well, we threaten them a little more now, I respond with a shrug. Saves us time, for sure. Layton does not respond, she only chews her tongue in thought. A low, bone-trembling rumble warbles through the air. It comes from beneath, and shakes the rig in time to the thunder. I can feel myself paling. the blood draining. I hate this part. I know that we'll be okay, I know it. But this part is still, by far the worst. Layton grips the rail, her eyes widening. The beast is louder this time too, she says. No, you're imagining things, Evie cuts in. Come on, split and search. Let's see where the thing's going to appear this time. We separate, running down the sides of the deck. The location of the beast's arrival is useful intel. Typically it appears at the opposite side of the rig to the DOTP, but, again, it's not a guaranteed rule. The rig is deserted as I run between its steel. The workers stay well clear of us during this ritual. It hampers productivity somewhat, I suppose, but hell, I don't really give a shit about any of that. And I don't blame them. 2 agonizing minutes pass by. Every second that goes by without seeing the beast sends my anxiety levels spiking. Every night I convince myself that this'll be the one time that the DOTP has told us the truth. That the shadow in the water will attack and bring down the rig. That we'll be consumed, drowned, taken, torn apart, or worse. My heart stops for a moment when I catch sight of it. The shadow in the water. The beast. I grab my flashlight and hold it up the sky, flickering the thing on and off, on and off. The others, if they see it, will come to join me. If not, well, the rig isn't that big. They'll find me eventually. I peer over the edge, the wind cold against the exposed skin of my face. The beast is, by my guess, about a half-mile long. It is difficult to tell exactly how long, however, as its shadow only becomes visible as it approaches the surface, and it frequently dips and lowers as it navigates the depths of the surrounding sea. My teeth are sent shivering in my gums as that dreadful, deep-sea roar reverberates around the steel of the rig, goosebumps rippling up my arms and neck. Hey, Evie says from beside me. Found it. Phew, that definitely took longer than usual tonight. You know, I sometimes fear that dash. Yeah, I interrupt, knowing what she's going to say. Yeah, I know. Same. The shadow slithers and snakes beneath the waves, and due to its size gives off the illusion of being slow-moving. It's not until it's right beneath us, however, beginning its dutiful circling of our station, that one really gets a sense of its speed. The beast begins to circle. Around, and around. I try to keep the warning words of the DOTP out of my head. I make a mental note of the location of the beast's arrival for when it comes time to write up my report, and I exchange a few words with Evie. She nods, and returns to the CIWS. She may or may not fire down into the beast. Hopefully she won't. It's rare, very rare indeed that we are ever required to strike the shadow itself. But those nights are not fun. They are not fun in the slightest. I walk the perimeter of the rig until I locate Layton. She stares down into the water, watching in silence. You good? I ask her. She nods, but does not respond. The beast departs as the weather begins to improve. Still in the depths of the night, but the rain and the wind are lessening, now. With one final, terrible roar, the beast breaks its circling, and begins to slither off and away into the sea, quickly descending back down, and vanishing from sight. I allow myself a deep, slow, calming breath of Atlantic air, almost tangibly feeling the tension leave my muscles. Great. Wonderful. Another night done, and time for bed. I'll write up the first draft of the report out, then go over it and update it in the morning. It's important to write down everything of note before going to sleep, while the memories are fresh. I am always careful to keep Layton's comments omitted. When she questions our role here, or the hostility of the DOTP, she just speaks before thinking. She's like that, she doesn't mean anything by it. Her words would be considered blasphemous by some, and I'm no narc. I write up what I need to and head to my dorm, crashing quickly into a dreamless sleep. It's 4 more days until the DOTP returns. And we can all tell it's going to be one of those nights, even before the sun has set. Everyone, including the rig workers, are on edge. The clouds spend the course of the day slowly gathering, growing, billowing up and out, and filling with ice and with brutal, bitter water. And I am afraid, this evening. Actually afraid. I hate myself for it, but I can't help it. It's the same every time, Alejandro, I tell myself. The exact same. We are never attacked. Nothing ever happens. Just stick with it. You'll be fine. And so we prepare for the night. We await the coming of the DOTP as the first great sheets of rain begin to wash their way across the horizon towards us. I cringe and brace as the first icy droplets fall onto my face. Then more, and then, in seconds, the sound of the torrent against the steel and into the sea is almost deafening. I feel weird, tonight, Jandro, Layton says to me, fidgeting. Like, I don't know. Something's different. No, it isn't, I gruffly reply. It's the same as it always is. The last time the beast was here she begins, but I cut her off. No, Layton. Don't think about it. There are variations, but the state of play is always the same. The DOTP arrives. It leaves. The shadow arrives, it leaves. That's all there is to it. She murmurs something else, but I don't hear what she says over the sound of the rain. She glances over the rails and into the churning water below. What is it? I ask her. Evie looks over too. Nothing, she says, glancing at me from beneath her hood. I thought I saw. What? I ask. Nothing, she finishes lamely, before turning to take her leave. Preparing for her perimeter walk in search of the DOTP. Our line of sight is dreadful tonight. Absolutely dreadful. Evie and I have to get the searchlight working, something we very rarely use as it limits our night vision. But when we don't have much of a vision at all, our options are limited. We only have the one, though, so once it's up and running I take command of it, and the two of us use it to scour the sea. Nothing appears. It's gotta appear tonight, surely? Evie asks. I mean on a night like this? Surely, you'd think, but maybe not? I grunt and swing the searchlight around. Maybe it isn't coming tonight at all. Evie snorts with grim laughter. Yeah, if you say so. She pauses. Layton's taking her sweet time. An offhand comment. But still. I lean back from the searchlight. I make eye contact with her. I'm going to go and check up on her, I say, outwardly calm but inside, suddenly panicked. Evie nods, sensing the change in atmosphere. I relinquish control of the light, and I set off around the rig's perimeter at a half jog. Layton should have been back by now. She should have been back ages ago. I increase my pace a little, boots splashing in the shining puddles across the rig's surface. They clang against a set of metal mesh stairs as I descend down to a lower platform. I glance up and out to sea. Fuck. I swear out loud and slip on the stairs, grabbing onto the rail for support. I can see the boat. One of the disturbers of the piece. And it's docked. It's fucking docked at the rig, way out on the opposite side. I break into a run now, sprinting between the bars and metal bones of the surrounding apparatus, skidding across the platform towards it. I take the final set of stairs 3 at a time, landing heavily at the bottom and running across to where the ship rocks and shudders in the waves beside the lowermost platform. And there is Layton. Preparing to board. She looks back at me, and our eyes meet. Layton. I scream out into the storm. What is she doing? What the fuck is she doing? She quickly looks away and jumps across to the ship's deck. She lands with a stumble, and is welcomed into the arms of the woman in pink, adorned in mask and gloves and goggles. The man in blue is also there. This must be the watchful guardian, not that it matters, I suppose. Comrade, he calls through the megaphone. Welcome. Quickly, jump across to the ship. There's still time to get you out of here. To get you all out of here. I stop at the edge of the dock, panting. I've never seen the crew of the DOTP so close. They stand completely still, legs shoulder-width apart, all facing towards me. Layton's hair is blown out to the side in the gale. She clenches her fists and then says something to the man in blue. He nods and passes her the megaphone. Alejandro, she shouts through the device. I think we're supposed to board. They're just going to keep coming. We have to board for the cycle to END. What the hell are you talking about? I shout back, though I have to really project without the use of a megaphone of my own. Who cares about the damned cycle? Layton, get back onto the rig right now. You are in danger. How could you be so stupid? She violently shakes her head. Tonight is the night, Jandro. The beast is finally going to take down the rig. Please. If you don't want to be torn apart and lost beneath the sea, then you have to board. They're just trying to save us. Have you lost your mind, Layton? I scream back. I raise the rifle and aim at the man in blue. Layton steps in front of him, blocking the shot. Jesus. I shout at her, furious and terrified. Layton. Please, don't do this. Don't do this. There's still time. I give voice to this thought. There's still time to come back, please. She hands the megaphone back to the man in blue. Comrade, the beast approaches. Are you able to evacuate the rig? Everyone needs to be off in the next few minutes. Please, send her back. I shout to him. Let Layton off the ship. I don't understand, he calls back. You need to join us. This whole rig is going down. You won't stand a chance against the beast, I'm sorry. Please, evacuate the rig. I take aim, and I fire. The megaphone flies out of his hands, a large piece shattered right off. The man in blue stumbles back in alarm as it clatters to the deck. He makes a gesture to his crew, and at once they retreat into the cabin. The ship's engine starts to groan. Layton shouts something at me, but I don't hear what she says. The man crouches swiftly down and grabs the damaged megaphone, calling back one last time. I'm sorry, but I can't put my crew's lives in danger like this. May God help you. I hope by some miracle you survive the attack, soldier. And with that, he departs. He opens the door to the ship's cabin and gestures for Layton to go inside. Layton. I shout, please, just come back. But the ship is pulling away from the dock, rising and falling in the angry waves. And with a final glance, Leighton passes through the doorway, and the man in blue follows. The ship pulls back and sails off into the storm. I take aim and fire off a few more shots, though I don't know why I'm bothering. I manage to mark the hull. A nice clear bullet hole by the G of Watchful Guardian. But there is nothing of any use that I can do. Nothing I can do but watch in distress as the ship turns away. As it sails off through the chaos of the storm and sea, plunging through the waves and into a slowly spreading cloud of mist. Vanishing from sight. And the beast follows. It always does. And tonight is the worst. I have never felt so close to death. It wastes no time in its emergence, the great encircling shadow. And I am trapped in a state of terror. Why would Leighton board the ship? Why would she board unless she knew? Unless she knew that this is the night that the rig goes down? It's going to attack. The beast is going to attack the rig. We're going to see it in all its truth. In all its horror. I race from the platform's edge to its opposite, and back. Always keeping eyes on the beast. I relay the situation to Evie, who struggles to believe me, even with the intensity in my voice. Shots are fired into the beast as that monstrous roar ripples up through the rig's metal, as it echoes with the thunder, and the waves are sent crashing and frothing above the slithering shadow. The night drags on. Years of my life are lost to the storm through the sheer stress of the situation. The searchlight swings round and around. But the beast does not attack. Maddeningly, thankfully, torturously, the beast does not attack. Even after everything. The storm, the foreshadowings, the warnings. There is simply no attack. The beast just circles. Around, and around, and around, until the storm starts at last to subside. With a final, menacing watery roar, the shadow begins its final descent. Breaking off from its path, swimming out to sea and sinking back down into the depths, until it is lost completely from sight. The rain eases. The wind calms. And the sun, steadily, begins to rise, casting its thin gray light across the surface of the sea. And I only stare. Still in a state of shock. Eyes bloodshot and hands trembling on my rifle. Leighton is all I can think. She's gone. I did see her again. Leighton, I mean. During my time on the rig. Several times, actually. The DOTP, and the accompanying beast, appeared to us on 6 more nights. On one of those nights we were visited by Rainbow's End. The other, Forgotten Queen. But the other 4 were our regular. The Watchful Guardian. The man in blue was still there. The woman in pink, also. But neither of them were the one to call over to us on those final 4 visits. It was Leighton. Always Leighton. Adorned in goggles that covered her eyes, and a thin, black mask that covered her face, she called over to Evie and I on the megaphone. She was still wearing her military camo. Still equipped with her rifle. And all she did was beg us to join her. To allow them to dock and for us to board the ship, to evacuate the rig and to escape. Each time she tried, she was convinced that the rig was about to go down. That the beast was truly about to tear us all apart. She seemed completely oblivious of her previous visits, and seemingly, the events surrounding her own choice to board the DOTP in the first place. I considered shooting her, you know. I looked through the sights of my rifle. Wondered if a shot from that range would strike. And then, decided against it. Maybe one day she'll find her way back. Maybe I'll get stationed on the rig again. I've requested it, but I'm awaiting the results of my psychological assessments. Time will tell, I guess. But all I can say for certain is that the damn thing is still standing. As of the time of writing, the beast is yet to finally tear it down. So make of that what you will, I guess.
Thanks for watching. If you want to hear more stories like these, please like and subscribe.